So, I'm sorry. All right, 3, 4. So we are in the second week looking at classification essays. So this round, this week, we're clarifying, comparing. So we're clarifying any issues you might have about a classification essay. We're comparing it to the ABD format. And we'll also be looking at paragraphs and introductory paragraphs. So last week talked a little bit about the basic parts of a paragraph. So today we will look at what we need to do in an introductory paragraph. I am thinking that this week will be relatively short, a short session. Of course, it depends on how many questions you have, and we will stay until all your questions are answered, because that's what we're here for, right? So let's get started. I'm pretty sure this, well, we're at least halfway. So let's get started. Okay. Wait, one thing before we do, who has a pretty stable connection and would volunteer to co-host so that when people are entering, you can enter them in. Anybody wants to volunteer to help with that? Letting people into the session?
No, man, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Afternoon, Miss.
Afternoon. Right, so you will also be hearing little doorbells, Nashara, so just let in people.
No problem.
Right? And hopefully that would stop the random gray, because every time you see a gray square in the recording, it's because there's a dialog box popping up on my screen while I'm sharing. Right?
Okay.
So hopefully we can work around that, alleviate that a little bit. Right?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon. Right. So this week we are continuing our discussion on classification essays. We are looking at, we will also compare, we'll have a little discussion and compare and contrast the different types, the ABD versus classification. What are their similarities? What are their differences? We'll be looking at introductory paragraph and some common sentence errors and parallelism, right? So what I want to start with today are some of the common errors that people make when writing their essays, right? So we talked about a thesis statement. So a common error is having no thesis statement anywhere in your essay. And restating that convention for academic writing is typically the introduction ends with your thesis statement, right? The thesis statement is the heart of your essay. Not having a thesis statement, not having a central point or a main idea, leaves your reader lost and wondering why they're reading this essay in the first place, right? So no thesis statement is a problem. Having a thesis statement that is too strong, and when we talked about thesis statements, we talked about claims being strong or qualified. So here, I mean too strong as in the claim is not qualified, the claim leaves no wiggle room for any other possibility or eventuality. That is also problematic because it makes the entire essay untrustworthy. You come across as biased or having limited understanding of your topic. The third problem is the topic sentences do not support the thesis. So again, like we talked about, the thesis statement will spawn your topic sentences. And so if your topic sentences for each paragraph does not link back to your thesis statement, it means your essay and your thesis statement are at odds or do not match with each other, are disconnected. So your topic sentences should link directly to the thesis. If the thesis is the main idea of your essay, then each topic sentence should reflect the thesis in some shape or form. Number 4, the essay is disorganized. And here when we talk about the essay as a whole, where the information is scattered in different paragraphs, or you have endless background information that has little to do with the topic sentences, and so on. So your organization has fallen apart. Things aren't in the sections they're supposed to be, where they will make the most sense and have the most impact, right? Again, it's like telling a joke. So think of it this way. If someone is telling you a joke and they tell you the punchline halfway through the joke, it's ruined, right? You know, we all know bad joke tellers, bad storytellers, and they will come all the way to the end and then go, oh, wait, I forgot to mention this detail. And it's the detail that they forgot to mention that makes everything, it gives everything meaning, it makes it make sense, right? So the entire essay is disorganized. This would include paragraphs not flowing into each other, right? We can also have disorganized paragraphs. So within each paragraph is disorganized. So we talked about the parts of a paragraph: topic sentence, supporting sentences, concluding sentence, or clincher sentence, right? So if you have a sentence that reads as a clincher sentence and then 3 or more sentences after that, it seems like you're not coming to your final point in the paragraph. If you start, let's say your topic sentence has 3 subsections, but the subsections are in different order, or in evidence that would support one subsection is linked to another subsection, then the information seems disorganized. And again, as a writer, you don't seem to be on your game. information is repeated for no reason. Now, I know, I'm not sure how if they still teach this style. I've encountered this style before. Maybe it's American, I don't know. Where you write your topic sentence and then you rephrase your topic sentence for some reason. And that is pointless. It's what we call redundant. It signals to the reader that you're trying to make up words. It signals to the reader that you don't actually have enough information to make a full paragraph, so you're just repeating yourself. Repetition is a style or a tool you can use in writing, but you must be very careful with it. If it doesn't come across as a stylistic element, it just comes across as you being unable to move forward. And so you're just repeating, you're in a loop and you're repeating your information. New information is introduced in the conclusion. Is the conclusion for a reason? The conclusion it sums up your entire paragraph. If the information is so important, why is it not in the body of your paragraph, of your essay? All important information should be in the body of your essay. This again suggests that you've planned out your essay, you know what your main point is, you know where you're trying to go. So do not include new information in your conclusion. And of course, one of the biggest errors, so apart from content and organization, is what we call mechanical errors. So errors in punctuation, spelling, syntax, grammar, to the point where the meaning is obscure or it's hard to decipher what you're really trying to say, right? So these are some of the main errors that you can have in an essay. So let's take a look at then some common sentence errors. So these would fall under mechanical errors. Yeah, you said that. when we talk about it being dangerous and undermining ethos, ethos is an appeal that you make in writing. It's a rhetorical device. It is where the reader feels assured that the writer, the author, is trustworthy, knows what he or she is writing about, and is a credible source. So if we litter our essays with fragments, it suggests that we are not knowledgeable about grammar and syntax as we should be. And so this creates a mood in the reader that this author doesn't know. It's not a credible source. This author might not really know what he or she is writing about. So fragments. To recap, a fragment is an unfinished thought, is an incomplete sentence. It's either missing a subject, but it's not an imperative sentence, or it's missing a verb because the form does not function as a verb in the sentence. So this is a more technical error. And it usually happens when we're not paying attention and we join elements that aren't supposed to, that don't go together structurally. So sometimes we would read and infer the meaning, but that's not what the sentences actually say, right? In terms of speaking, mixed construction is not that much of a problem because the person you're speaking to will decipher the meaning. But if we are doing writing and formal writing, mixed construction becomes a problem because it can obscure your meaning or it can create meanings you don't intend. Also, it creates wordy sentences. more common mistakes we make is a form of run-on sentence. If we are joining two independent clauses, remember independent clause has a subject and a verb, and it's a complete thought. So if we're joining two independent clauses, it must be with a coordinating conjunction, a semicolon, or we're leaving it two separate sentences and using a full stop. If we run a sentence together with a coordinating conjunction and no comma, it is a fused sentence. So be sure to have the punctuation and part of speech. And remember, we looked at part of speech in week 1 or week 2. And someone has their mic on. Did you want to ask a question? Last of the common errors. So with the dangling modifier, where you have a phrase or a clause that's supposed to add extra information for a specific noun, it's called a modifier. When we move it, and it's not in its right place, as with the last example, you see that because we moved the modifier from the noun or pronoun it was supposed to give us extra information for, it ended up sounding like the doctor wanted a second opinion and you stayed up all night trying to pass your exam and not stayed up all night studying. So it creates a meaning that you do not intend. It makes it difficult to decipher what the meaning is. So be very careful if you're adding extra information that is as close to the noun that it's supposed to modify as possible. When it's not close to the noun it's supposed to modify, we don't know which noun it's referring to, it becomes a little complicated. So let's also look at a stylistic feature now. Okay. Parallelism. So parallelism is a style where we create similar structure, grammatical structure. So it's a form of repetition. And like I said, repetition can be used effectively in an essay to enhance your writing, make your writing more stylistic, nicer to read, help enhance the points that you're trying to make. So in a parallelism, we repeat grammatical structure, either using the words, phrases, or clauses. We could even repeat the structure and how we start each paragraph, how we start each sentence, and so on. So it's a specific form of repetition where we use the same grammatical structure. This helps create patterns. You will find it in essays, speeches, expressions or idioms, lyrics, poetry, novels, short stories. It's a widely used stylistic device. It allows you then to establish a rhythm and flow, and this can drastically affect the mood of your writing. So it creates a nice rhythm and flow and makes it a pleasure to read or a joy to listen to. It also helps, especially in oral presentations, but as well as in essays. It helps you remember the message. Now, if you sat through a church sermon, you would find that they use a lot of parallelism and repetition because it helps us remember. Or if you have to learn something, it's easier to learn a song that has a parallel structure than it is to learn a piece of prose. That repetition, that structure, that rhythm and flow makes it easier for us to remember the message. Right, so when we use parallelism, it helps us make comparisons and contrasts. And this is because we use the same grammatical structure. So when we switch a word, the word stands out in that grammatical structure because we are hearing a rhythm. So we're picking up the different words in the rhythm, right? Disrupting parallelism on purpose can call attention to a contrast, but it can usually suggest if we don't do it well, or if we do it inappropriately, it comes across as an error. In particular, when we are making lists or we're writing out a series separated by commas and we don't use parallel structure, it reads as an error. It reads awkwardly. It feels clunky. So here are some examples. What you see is what you get. Here, the phrase starts with a pronoun followed by a personal pronoun. So oh shucks. Ooh, that just gone, right? It's not acting as an interrogative, it's the other one. Relative, there we go. Relative pronoun, personal pronoun, verb. And in the next section, it's a relative pronoun, personal pronoun, verb. As a matter of fact, in this example, you see the only word that changes is the verb. See, get. And so it calls attention to the two verbs because we know they're very different. So it calls attention to the contrast between see and get. In the second one, we start with a gerund, being, followed by a possessive noun acting as an adjective, followed by a noun. In the second one, gerund, being, adjective, constantly, alert, noun. And in the third one, to know her, infinitive verb, pronoun, is to love her, infinitive verb, pronoun. So again, the structures are calling our attention to the comparisons and the contrasts. So let's take a look now at the introductory paragraph, what it's made up of, what it's supposed to do. Now, as you can see, the introduction serves a vital function in your essay. And so sometimes we actually write the introduction or go back to the introduction after we've written the rest of the essay. And of course, this is possible if we've outlined everything beforehand. Once you know what the main topic is, what your main point and purpose is, then you know where your essay is going, and you can go back and do your introduction. That is why when we are writing an outline, we actually don't bother to outline introductions and conclusions. We only outline the body, because in outlining the body, we can go back and really fit in how do we lead our reader into our essay. And that's the point of the introduction. So when we look at it as like two funnels taped together, the introduction is supposed to narrow you into the body of the essay, and the conclusion will then take you back out in a wider way. And so upcoming homework, you will be attempting an introductory paragraph for an ABD essay. And for the ABD essay you outline, and you will be writing an outline and an introductory paragraph for a classification essay. Which brings us to the next point of conversation. And this is where I'm going to, we have two choices. Am I rushing? We aren't going too fast, right?
No, ma'am.
Because I feel like we're going very fast because it's only 5:46. And I think I hope I haven't covered too much in too short a space of time. Right. So let's talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between analysis by division and classification. Right. So who wants to tell me what an analysis by division is?
Miss, the analysis by division is when you take the smaller parts of an object that you want to talk about, or anything that you want to talk about, to show how it creates or how it makes up the whole. I don't know if I try to put it together, but I remember.
Miss, you choose a topic and you divide it into parts, and then you analyze or you elaborate on each part of the topic in order to make the whole story.
Right, yes. So Camille, you had it a little, I see where you were going, but you started with the divisions before you started with the whole. So we start with the whole and we divide it. Yes, Lisa?
Miss, I was going to say, that is when the topic is a large topic, and you're breaking it down into different categories.
Right, so yeah, you're breaking them down into different divisions or elements of the larger thing, right? So the examples we looked at before was a university, and we could break a university down into its component parts. And as we explain each component part in a university, we then explain what an entire university is, right? And same thing if you want to explain how a large something works, or usually an organization or something that is concrete, organization, a machine, something we could actually experience with our five senses. I'm saying that because when we talk about an extended definition, An extended definition will break down a larger topic, but it's usually something that we cannot experience with our five senses. It's usually something that's abstract, right? So yes, the ABD takes a large topic, let's say communication, right? And then breaks it down into its components. So communication, for communication to be effective, the sender has to do certain things. So what is the sender? So I'll explain what the sender is. I'll explain what the message is. I'll explain what the receiver is. And then explain what each part does to facilitate communication. So communication, the controlling principle in communication is sharing information. And so there are three main interlocking elements in communication that will allow communication to send information or share information. So you need a sender, the person with the information. You need the message that contains the information. And you need the receiver, the person who will get the information. So if communication is the process of sharing information, those are the three things in communication. Once we understand what the sender does, what the message is, what the receiver does, we understand how communication works, right? What about classification?
Miss, I think this is Nadia. I
Mhm.
think classification is in part it involves what ABD is about, but I think it's like breaking down more um the larger topic, meaning like you could break, for instance, flowers. You could break apart flowers into different varieties. Some flowers are indigenous to different countries and they can only be found there. Some flowers can be food, some flowers have smells, some flowers do this or that, etc. Is that correct?
Yes. So rather than explain how something functions or what its main purpose is, right? Because by telling you the different types of flowers, I'm not telling you what the purpose of a flower is, right? So I'll stick with your example. I'm telling you the different kinds of flowers there are out there. So when you see something, you can identify that it belongs to a category or a classification called flower, right? Am I building on what you said?
Yeah, miss.
Right. So we usually see classification and division yoked together. So if you go online and you try looking for an analysis by division essay, you're going to get a classification and division essay. They're kind of similar, but the main point is they do something a bit different, right?
Okay.
One takes a system or a structure and breaks it down into each functioning component to explain how it does what it's supposed to do. And the other one is really, as in taking from biology and classification, is really putting things into categories, right? So, for example, if I'm writing an essay and I'm talking about different communication devices, right? So you have what we're all on right now, computer, you have cell phone, you have tablet, right? What am I doing there? So communication, electronic communication devices, computer, tablet, cell phone. Is that analysis by division or is that classification?
Classification, I would say.
Yes, it's
Classification.
right. And so what we can also do with classification, right, And I suppose this veers a little more into persuasive writing than just expository, but it can be an expository writing. This is a communication device. So I'm putting it in the category of communication device, right? So I can also do that with a classification essay. So what does a communication device do? It does X, Y, and Z. So a cell phone is a communication device because it does X, Y, and Z, right? So I'm putting it in a larger category to explain what a cell phone does. If I use the example of flower again, let me go back to the example of flower. How would I approach writing an analysis by division of a flower?
I think the analysis by division for a flower would be you'd be
listing the characteristics of a flower.
Right, the characteristics or the uses.
Will we be listing the uses, or is it this way?
I said types of flowers.
Is it like justifying what puts it into the category of a flower? That would be classification, right? So remember, yes?
Miss, you would divide the flower, you would explain the characteristics of the flower, meaning that you would divide a flower into like the sepal, the petals, the leaves, or something like that, and then explain each part?
Yes. So
this is like basically like a breakdown of the flower, as Carolyn was saying.
Right.
Yes, so we will be explaining what a flower is by explaining the different parts of a flower and what it does. So in going through homework 2, and yes, I apologize, I'm very slow. Apologies. I'm trying, right? In going through homework 2, what I'm noticing is we are missing one key element of the analysis by division, and that's identifying the controlling principle. I've been seeing people mixing up controlling principle with the thesis of the essay, and they're two different things. So the controlling principle is what is the primary function of the thing we're trying to explain. So the primary function of a flower is to help a plant reproduce, right? It's a reproductive organ of a plant. How do I explain it's a reproductive organ of a plant? Well, the petals do this, which help with reproduction. So the petals are a lovely color, they're vibrant color, and they give off a scent, so that attracts insects. The stamen has, that's the male part. The stamen has the pollen, so that's one part of, that's the gamete, the male gamete in the flower. The pistil has the, oh, it's been so long since I've done biology. The pistil is the female part of the flower. She thought, that's so sad, Kayla. And each part of the flower helps the flower to be the reproductive organ of the plant, right? As opposed to saying the flowers, there are different types of flowers. And that would be classification. So there are lilies, let's say there are single petal flowers like lilies. There are 5 petal flowers like hibiscus, and there are multiple petal or layered flowers like a rose. They're all flowers, right? These are different types of flowers. So I'm not trying to explain what a flower does. I'm trying to explain that there are different types of flowers, right? So the controlling principle is the primary function of the thing we're trying to explain. It's a little different than the thesis of the essay. The thesis of an ABD essay might say that you can't understand something unless you look at how the different pieces of it function, or whatever. right? But the controlling principle, and this is really when you're brainstorming to figure out what the controlling principle is. The controlling principle is, what is the primary function of this thing that we're trying to explain? So if we're looking at doing an ABD of a cell phone, the cell phone is supposed to be a communication device, right? That's the major function of a cell phone. It's a communication device. So there are three things about a cell phone that makes it a communication device. One, I can call people on it, so it functions as a telephone. Two, I can text people on it, so it is short form, quick electronic communication. Three, I can access email and send email, so that's another form of communication. So those three functions make the whole function of this a communication device, right? As opposed to, if I want to say the other example, what are communication devices? What are the different types of communication devices? So we have a tablet, we have the cell phone, we have the computer, right? All of them allow us to, you can make phone calls on your computer, you can make phone calls on a tablet, you can make phone calls on a phone, on a cell phone, you can email on all three, you can send pictures, send texts on all three. All three have calendars, so it helps you keep in on track, and so on and so on. So the difference is slight but significant. The analysis by division is where we take a complex item or a item or organization or whatever, and we explain what it is, what its primary function is, by explaining the different pieces that allow it to do that primary function. So when we looked at university as our example, the university is an educational institution, and it has three divisions that helps it to function as an educational institution. It's academic department, its sporting department, and its administrative department. And then I go on to explain how the academic department helps it be an educational institution, how the sporting department helps it be an educational institution, and how the administration helps it be an educational institution, right? So I'm explaining what the university is, what it does, by explaining the different pieces in it and what they do to help the university do what it does. The classification, on the other hand, I might say there are different types of universities. We have research universities, we have teaching universities, we have correspondence universities, right? So I'm talking about the different types of universities we can encounter. All of them are educational. All of them we can break down if we wanted to explain what each one is, but I'm showing you that the category of university has several variations in that category, right? If we take a biological example, if we borrow from biology, right? The main species is canine, right? So we know canines. There are different types of canines. We have dingoes, coyotes, wolves, dogs, foxes. We can split dogs up. We have Dustbin terriers, poodles, pompex, pit bulls, Doberman, Rottweiler, and so on and so on. Or if I wanted to be a little more organized, you have what they call toy dogs, toy dogs, working dogs, and hunting dogs. We could say those are three types of dog, right? So thinking about the difference between an ABD and a classification essay. Does that make sense so far?
Miss, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Something is not connecting for me with the controlling principle and the thesis statement.
Mm.
The controlling principle are part of the thesis statement, or is it two different things? I think I'm mixing it up.
It's two different things. So let's divide it. Let's leave the thesis statement as part of your as part of drafting the essay. Let's say it's the first step, well, it's the last step in your pre-writing. Actually, it's not even the last step. It's the middle step in your pre-writing. If I'm going to say it's the process, it's like the middle step in your pre-writing. The first step in your pre-writing, though, when you come across a topic that you're going to do analysis by division, the first step is to find out what that thing is supposed to do. And that's the controlling principle, right? What is it supposed to do? When you figure out, well, that's what the controlling principle is. So if I tell you write analysis by division on let's say the police force, right? Mm-hmm. So what is the police force supposed to do?
Protect and serve, keep order, keep peace.
Right. So it is well, let's say keep order. Right. Let's say keep order, right? Order and peace and preserve law. So well, that's keeping order is preserving the law, right?
Right.
Right. So that's the main function of your police force, is to preserve the law. Make sure no one is breaking the law. Right? So that's the controlling principle. That is what the police force is supposed to do. How will we explain how a police force maintains law and order? How would we break down police force to say it maintains law and order? What are the three things that a police force would have that would allow it to maintain law and order?
Knowledge, manpower, and then actually enforcing it. So you'd have to know the law first of all, and then you'd have to have more than one person in some instances to actually enforce the law.
Anybody want to help her? So we're talking, you need to know the law.
Right.
You need to have
the authority.
Officers. You need authority.
You need to have training.
You need to have training. I have another word that starts with an A that I hear anybody call yet. It's a big word. Something that they really should have.
Authorization.
A. Next letter is C.
Accountability.
Yes, accountability. You don't want people running around enforcing the law and they have no one to answer to. You end up with a lot of George Floyd that way. Right, so we said training, accountability. We say training and knowledge go together, right? Accountability, manpower, authority. So notice right now what we're doing, we're brainstorming and we are actually just listing out different things that we think a police force would need if it is supposed to uphold the law, right? So it would need training, it would need accountability, it would need manpower, it would need authority, What were the other things we said? Those were the major things we said, right? Training or knowledge, accountability, manpower, authority. How then, or what department, or what kind of structure would we put in place for training? Was one branch then of the police service that would look after training and knowledge?
Like the legal part, the enforcement of the lower part. I don't know what it's called. So I guess there, for the, as you said, the training and learning will come in two parts. So I'm thinking the theory part and then the physical part where they have to do the physical training and whatever. So that's what I'm thinking.
Right. So where do you go if you want to become a police officer? Where do you go to get the training?
The
Police Training Academy.
Police Training Academy. So that's Division 1 is a police training academy, right? And the police training academy is responsible for both the physical and the theoretical training of potential police officers, right? So if I want to hold police officers accountable, where do I go?
Complaints.
Right, and it's officially called what in Trinidad?
Police Complaints Authority.
Yes. Right, so that's accountability. Can we put manpower under police training academy, or will that fall under something else?
That will fall under human resource.
Right, so we have a human resource division, right? So I have my 3 main divisions then. So in order for a police force to function, to fulfill its primary function of upholding the law, we need a police training academy, we need a police complaint authority, and we need human resources. And probably I'll go police training academy, human resources, police complaint authority, right? And then under each of those, the things we listed out, training and knowledge, that goes under police training academy, accountability, that's police complaints authority, manpower and authority is actually human resources division, because the human resources division then tells us there's a structure to the organization, and they would be in charge of both finding people to train, putting people out on the streets, and keeping organizational structure, right? So I have explained then how a police force is supposed to function by explaining the different departments or divisions in a police force and how they then help the entire organization to function, right? We getting to see the difference?
Yes, Miss question though. Now, the breaking it down like that, that's the classification.
That's the analysis by division.
Analysis by division. So when you break that down again, is it safe to say that you could have analysis by division essay, and within the essay, you find like classification types? Because if you break it down somewhere within the essay itself, you could have a classification essay within an ABD essay. Like if you're doing a complete paper,
it is
with everything included.
It is possible. It is. I'm not going to say no. It might come in your introduction as you introduce the police force. So police force is a law enforcing organization, or it's part of our security. Oh, that was a good one too. National security, how we break down national security. That would also be analysis by division, right? So where you might get the overlap between classification and analysis by division is that for me to really state what the function of a police service is, in the back of my mind, I've already put it in a specific class, right? Or a category or grouping, right? And that helps me figure out what the main function is. But I'm not spending the entire essay then trying to say that it belongs to a specific category. My entire essay is trying to explain how it fulfills the function it's supposed to fulfill. So we're really looking at what the purpose of the essay is. And that's the primary distinction. What is the purpose of the essay? So if the purpose of the overall essay is to explain how something functions by breaking it down into its little individual pieces, whether in a specific paragraph you do some classification or compare and contrast or cause and effect or process analysis, the overall purpose of your essay is to analyze by dividing, right? So I don't want, and they bring up a good point. I don't want us to think that the styles, we can't use elements of different styles in an essay. 9 out of 10 times when you're writing, especially if you're writing a longer piece, you'll find yourself doing composite styles or pulling styles together to fulfill specific things you needed to fulfill, right? So, for example, as you bring it up, if we're talking about how the police service functions as upholding the law, and we're talking about, okay, so to be able to uphold the law, we must be able to train people physically and theoretically. I might actually, in that paragraph, do a little process analysis and go step by step how you train somebody to be a police officer. But again, the primary function of the essay itself is to explain, by breaking police force down into 3 main components, how a police force functions as a police force, right? Classification would be telling us what are the different types. So if you're looking at police officer or the police force or police officers, right? There are different types of police officers. We have traffic police. We have special, we have CID. We have police, CID, and then we have like station officers. So, you know, you go to make a report in a station, you have that branch, right? So I'm in a classification essay, I'm telling you the different types of police officers. But I'm assuming you already know what a police officer is, what a police officer does. So these are different types of police officers. So the function of a classification essay is to give us, it's either to put something smaller into a larger category. So with the cell, or if you're sticking with police officers, I'm gonna stop changing up my examples so much, right? So a traffic cop is a police officer, right? And a traffic cop is a police officer because he does what a police officer is supposed to do. That's one way of doing classification. Or I can say there are different types of police officers who are in charge of upholding the law. So traffic police officer upholds traffic law. The CID investigates serious crimes and therefore uphold and apprehend people who break laws. So they're upholding the laws by, you know, doing that justice part there. And station officers, if you want to use American terminology, the officers on the beat, they patrol and they are reporting and preventing minor infractions, right? So I'm just telling you the different type of police officers. My assumption is you already know what a police officer is and what a police officer is supposed to do. So here are the different types of police officers, as opposed to telling you how a police force functions. And these are the different divisions that allow a police force to function, right? Where it gets confusing is when you go outside of class and you look up the essays. A lot of the classification by division essays, they're somewhere in between. They're dividing the class into examples of that class. So they will tell you the types. The analysis by division is telling you what it's supposed to do. How does it function? Not just the types. We don't care about the types. We want to know how it's supposed to function. And these three things, these three elements help it to function the way it's supposed to function. Right? Yes?
Okay, so if the classification aspect, right? If using your example with the police officer, if it's supposed to talk about the different types of police officers, as opposed to the ABD speaking about the function. When you are talking about the types for the classification essay, and you said you have to ask that persons will already know what the types are. My question is, so then what, in writing about the types, what are you supposed to really identify? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to ask.
Okay, so in the classification, I'm assuming you already know what the category is and what the category is supposed to do. So you know what a police officer is and you know what a police officer is supposed to do. What I'm now going to inform you is the different types of police officers that you can encounter doing what a police officer is supposed to do. Right? So whereas in the ABD, I would break down, I would tell you what the thing is supposed to do. In the classification, I'm telling you the different kind of things that do, the different kind of things that belong in that category. They all do the same thing. They come in different styles or shapes or forms, right? So the flower, for example, when we talked about the flower as an example, right? We have different kinds of flowers, but they all do the same thing, pretty much, right? We have different kinds of cars, but they all do the same thing, pretty much, right? They all have similar characteristics, whether it's a two-door car or four-door car, if it's sports, sedan, SUV, crossover. We know what a car is, we know what a car is supposed to do, but do you know about the variety of cars that they have? Right? And so in the classification, we're not trying to explain necessarily what the thing does. We're trying to explain the different types of things that are out there.
Yes, miss, but what is confusing me is if you are talking about the different, okay, I understand like different types of cars and stuff, and the different types of police officers. In my mind, it's feeling as if if you are talking about the types, it's limited in terms of, to me, that's how it's kind of confusing, because it's sounding as if it's limited in writing. Because if I'm speaking about the different types of cars, what is it? Do I talk about the color? Do I talk about, I'm trying to.
Okay, so if we're talking about cars, right? What we have, let's say, we all know what a car is. We have sedans, we have sport cars, we have hatchbacks, right? So these are the different types of cars we can have. We can have a sedan, we can have a sports car, we can have a hatchback. Or let me say station wagon. Station wagon might be a little easier. We have a station wagon, right? A sedan is a 4-door car. It's a certain size, is usually associated with either family men or upper middle class as of a certain age. But you see how many things I have to say about a sedan.
Yeah.
Right? Sports car, 2 doors, usually has more horsepower, usually associated with either younger men or single men or men with something to prove. Is associated, it's called a sports car because it literally is used for sports. Station wagon usually has 4 doors like a sedan, but has larger cargo space because it has an extended trunk, usually owned by either family people with family, or small businesses because of how much you can carry in a station wagon. So I'm giving you the different types of cars, and I'm explaining what each type of car is.
So excuse me, in that case, you could actually use this essay as a compare and contrast or persuasive essay. Because if you're showing these different types, you could actually, so a persuasive essay might have ABD in it.
Yes.
Because you're explaining the different cars and telling you, okay, what does this one does, what this one does better, and what the other one does. So it's a compare and contrast or persuasive.
Yeah, so if I was making it persuasive, I would try to convince you that, really you should buy the sedan, because the sedan is the best model, which I don't 100% agree with, but I'm convincing you that you should buy a sedan. So, you're a middle to senior executive, you have a young family, you need to travel long distances safely, buy a sedan. That's the best one, right? So the classification is simply telling you these are the different types of cars. These are the characteristics of the different types of cars. I'm not trying to convince you to buy any specific kind of car, right? We could do it by style of car. You could do it by brands. You could do it any, once you know what the larger category is that you're trying to stay. So yes, we all used to, we all know what a car is. You know how many brands they have out there. You could get the same kind of car, or you can get different kinds of cars, or we now have 3 types of cars: gasoline powered or combustion powered cars, hybrid cars, and electric cars. Combustible car takes in some kind of fossil fuel to run it. It has a traditional engine with carburetor, pistons, blah, 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 right? The hybrid is a cross between an electric car and a traditional or combustion engine car. So it works like this, X, Y, and Z. And then the electric car has a completely rechargeable electric system. It runs an iron battery, blah, 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 blah. But these are just 3 types of cars. I'm just explaining the 3 different kinds of cars you can find in the category car. If I was doing a compare and contrast, I would emphasize what are either the similarities or the differences, right? So in my brainstorming, I might say, well, okay, while all cars do X, Y, and Z, the electric car does this differently. And usually it would be between 2 things. So the electric car does this differently than the combustion engine car, right? So we start with analysis by division because, yes, you're kind of gonna break everything down into components. What you do with the components depends on what you want to do in the essay. Lisa, you had your hand up? Does that make sense? Sorry.
Yes, Miss, it makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
Miss, so if I have this topic, right, like child abuse, so what you're saying is that we can use child abuse as a ABD, or it can be a classification.
Yes, it can be either. If it is an ABD, what is the, to sound very callous, what is the function of child abuse? That sounds so horrible.
Is actually the harming of a child.
Right. So we can then divide that into divisions that all help child abuse do what it's supposed to do. In the classification essay, we'll explain the different types of child abuse. So we don't have to explain that child abuse harm is harming the child. We can say there are different kinds of child abuse, such as physical, emotional, and neglect. It technically falls more into classification than analysis by division. Like I said, one of the things with analysis by division, it should be something a little more concrete, if you will. So something like an organization, something that has divisions or departments that lead into one overall function. I suppose. Yes.
Sorry, Miss Ado, I'm not seeing the raise hand emoji. So just for my own clarification, right? With the ABD, the whole point or synopsis or the whole bulk of that particular type of essay is that the function of whatever it is you're speaking about should be seen throughout the essay. Is that correct?
Yes. So you want each division to link back to the primary function or the controlling principle. It's called controlling principle because it controls all the division.
Right.
Right?
Okay. Cool. I just want to make sure I understand. And then, but my second question would be, in all essays, a thesis statement has to be present, which is the main idea or so.
Yes.
In any type of essay.
Any type of essay. Every essay is supposed to have a thesis statement, and the topic sentence would be related to the thesis statement.
Okay, I think I understand everything now. I'm so happy. Thanks.
Right. So
Miss, I have another question. Sorry. Miss, so if you include anything besides just the types of abuse, will that be going off the topic or off? Like if you include something like, okay, maybe the law or something else concerning child abuse, like, or the agencies, would that be going off the topic?
It would be going off topic. If you put it in the introduction as background to the SU, so child abuse is defined by this law as such and such and such and such. But how does child abuse work? If you're going to say how child abuse works, you need an adult, you need a child, and you need some form of violence. Right? This is a horribly depressing topic, by the way. As opposed to saying that, child abuse can be physical, mental, or a form of neglect. Right? So if I'm explaining how child abuse works, we need a child, obviously. We need the doesn't actually have to be an adult. We need a perpetrator, and we need some sort of violence. Right? So the child receives abuse, the child is harmed in some kind of way. That's how child abuse works. The perpetrator uses some kind of violence or is out to harm the child. That's how it works. And they have different violence, types of violence they could use against the child, right? Sustained violence or, yes, chronic. Chronic is the right word, chronic violence. So it's something that happens usually over a period of time. That's different than saying the different types of child abuse, right?
Yes, miss.
I have a question from Trisha about homework 5. So homework 5, write a thesis and sentence outline for a classification essay. Come up with a topic, something you want to classify, come up with a topic. Write a thesis statement that would fit a classification essay. So, you know, there are 3 types of X, Y, and Z, or we can break down dogs into 3 main types or something like that, right? So come up with a thesis statement for a classification essay based on a topic of your own choosing, and then write an outline. How would you outline that essay, right? That is coming up for next week, right? So
Miss, excuse, you also have homework 6 for next week on the 8th. Is that still as is, or you're going to change that? Homework 6 has
I'll try
where
and
the actual
push
essay
back.
promote online.
Yes, I think the dates went out. Don't ask me when, because homework 5 technically was supposed to be for week 5. It was introduced in week 5, supposedly. And that means technically it should have been due today. And I think I pushed it back for some reason. I don't remember now. I might have to push back all the homeworks. And if I forget, you'll just keep reminding me, because yeah, it's like.
Okay, Miss, there's a question, just to clarify for me. You were speaking about canines, right? Now, classification, types of dogs could be the classification, or types of canines could be classification. Now, what a dog does, could you, let's say you're doing an ABD for a dog, could you put the what it does as, what's the reason for having a dog? You could have it as a pet. It could be security, or it could be a seeing eye dog. Would that still be classification, or that could be ABD?
That would be closer to ABD, and now I have horrid visuals of dissecting dogs. But don't mind me, I have a very active imagination, so yes. But yes, you're explaining the function of a dog. So let's just say the function of a dog is to be man's best friend, right? And so in order for the dog to be man's best friend, it acts as a companion, it acts as security, and and it
if it could be a seeing eye dog, if there's a blind man, the dog could be
right,
assisting him as
a working companion or a workmate. Let's put a workmate, right? So the function of a dog, or why we have a dog, is because companionship. Lord, I forget what I say. It could be a companion, it could be a workmate.
Security and workmate.
And security, right. So we're explaining the function of a dog by breaking down what a dog does into its individual divisions, and then explaining the division. So a dog is man's best friend because it provides security. Well, yeah, we leave the companionship for last. Security,
work assistance,
and companionship. So these are the three divisions of what a dog does, right? The controlling principle of the dog is that it's man's best friend. So I will then explain each division and how that makes the dog man's best friend. So if we're talking about security, once you befriend the dog, except for pit bulls, which are somewhat erratic and can turn on their owner no matter how friendly you are. If you forget to feed it a few times, be very careful, right? So it's man's best friend because it provides security. Once it's loyal to you, it will defend you to the end. It would defend your property. It will defend your person, making it a true friend. It will also help you with work, whether you're hunting, herding, searching out people in the Alps, whatever it is, dogs will help you. And companionship, all friends supposed to, all friends will be there for you, just keeping you company, and dogs are perfect for that. They will cuddle with you at night. They will walk with you. They will go wherever you want to go. They're always eager to be around you. And that's how a dog functions as man's best friend, right? So again, the ABD is explaining the function of something by breaking it down into its three main components. Classification is telling us the different things we could find in that category, right? So we could find different types of flowers, we could find different types of cars, we could find different types of dogs, we could find different types of anything. We're not, however, spending time explaining necessarily how the thing functions by showing you each type. We're just telling you these are the different types, and yeah, right? So they all have these similarities. These are the different types of cars, different types of dogs, different types of flowers. I hope I'm making it a little bit clearer. And like I said, I've been trying to find reading examples of a purely analysis by division essay and a purely classification essay. But like I say, when you go online and look for examples, you're going to find a blend of the two. They're very similar, but they have different functions, right? So yeah, the question went homework 5. So pick a topic. I am not averse to you actually Googling topics for a classification essay. I do, however, caution copying an essay, because I will know. I derived just enormous pleasure for finding out those things. But so you don't want to take someone's idea, but there are topics out there, and there are sites that will give you topics for a classification essay if you're stumped and you don't know, you can't think of one on your own, right? Different kinds of education, different, we already talked about cars, we talked about police officers, flowers. You could talk about the different kinds of education.
Better giving out my idea.
I didn't know that was your idea. Sorry, you didn't hear that from me. Let's just rewind and take that off. Looking around my room, do you have different kinds of books? We have different kinds of musical instruments. We have
Colors.
Different kinds of colors, different kinds of clothes, different kind of jewelry, things that we could break down into types. So categories where we have different types. We have different writing implements. You have, different kinds of expository essays. There you go. That's something you can classify as well. right? Different kinds of essays. So pick a topic, a category, and what are the different types of things in that category, right? Any other questions?
Yes, Miss. How would you conclude classification essay after you talk about the types and so on? Is there a specific way?
So the conclusion, and we didn't talk about writing conclusion paragraphs. The conclusion of any essay is an inversion of your introduction, right? So where your introduction introduces people to the topic. So, you know, since the 19, since the turn of the 19, since the turn of the 20th century, the early 1900s, we've had cars in our community. So the topic is cars. But did you know there are different kinds of cars? Issue. And knowing the different kinds of cars, you know, help us make a more informed decision when it comes to buying a car, what car we would want, right? Significance. So really and truly, we are looking at 3 basic types of cars available: combustible engine cars, hybrid cars, and electric cars. Thesis statement. The conclusion then comes back the other way. Now that we've looked at combustion cars, hybrid cars, and electric cars, so I'm restating my thesis in a different way, and we've discovered that each one has particular pluses and minuses, summing up what I would have talked about in the essay. It should be easier for anyone looking for a car to make an informed opinion. And that is summing up the significance, the issue, and the topic. So the conclusion flips the introduction. So when the introduction starts as a funnel and it comes down narrow into the body stays narrow. The conclusion takes all that information and branches it back out into a larger conversation.
Okay.
Right? So that is why when we're doing outlines, we really only plot out the body paragraph. Because once we know the body paragraphs, we can introduce the body and we could conclude the body. Right? So for any type of essay, what you're going to do is just flip the introduction. So whatever you talked about in the introduction, you will flip it and talk about it in your conclusion. From narrowest, which is the thesis, all the way back out to the general topic. Right?
Okay, Miss.
And we will talk about conclusions on the concluding paragraph in more detail later on. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Now, after you submit assignment, I see they have resubmit even after you grade it. Is it that if you don't like the grade you get and you want to get a higher grade, you can resubmit, or after you resubmit and it's marked, you cannot resubmit the paper?
Because for the homework, you can resubmit. For quizzes and the portfolio, you cannot resubmit. But because the homework is designed for you to try, me give feedback, and you to improve on what you've done, I've actually set homework with unlimited resubmission. I will say though, if you get 70, 75 and above, don't bother to resubmit. Right? This is really to ensure that if people did not do well, they did less than 70%, and they want to enhance. And so, which if you did less than 70%, you didn't catch the majority of it anyway. If you understand what I mean. So we'll say at least 70% suggests some kind of mastery of the specific
understanding. Okay.
Right?
All right.
And as we're speaking of Canvas, when I mark your papers on Canvas, except for the, so if it's an assignment and I mark your papers, you should see like actual ink marks and text comments on the paper itself, and that's your feedback. So don't just look at the grade, look at the paper because the paper has feedback on it. If it is a marked discussion, then the feedback would be in the comments section. I will put up for you all the hotline for TLC. TLC is the department that offers technical support for Canvas. So sometimes if something goes wrong on Canvas, there's really nothing I can do about it. It's nothing I can help you with. Contacting TLC is the better option, right? So if it's saying, I know I had one student complain that she couldn't access the comments. It was just not loading. I can't do anything about that. I submit the comment, and as far as I know, whoops, magic, there it goes. It's supposed to be where it's supposed to be, right? If you're having access or connectivity, if you're having access issues, TLC would be better equipped to help you with that, right?
Miss Sam, and if you don't see a comment or any red marks, but a grade was given.
Well, that should not be, if it's anything less than full marks. If we don't see a comment or red squiggles and you get full marks, it's because it was, acceptable. So the more I will make comments and so on to help guide you in the process. So if you don't see comments, is that I don't have comments to make, right?
Okay.
Oh, homework. The homework is time sensitive, and it's available usually about 2 to 3 weeks after the due date. But if you miss it after that extended period, is technically I'm not supposed to give you an extended period in the first place. So I will see what I can do if there was a serious error or glitch or something that prevented submission, and that's to let me know, and then I can see what I can do with opening it back up. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Miss, are we using the same outline for the classification as the one with the ABD?
Yeah, it's a generic outline. The Word document you can download is a generic outline. All outlines follow that format, right?
Okay.
So Miss Sam, this week we only submitted homework 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will change the date once. Actually, I can do that right now because Kayla will forget. Right, so homework 6.
Miss, I don't know if anybody asked this already. I was breaking up for a little bit, but so the same topic that we use to do the outline in homework 4, can we use that same and just flow from there for homework 5?
The same. Now, I'll give you my lazy person answer. You can take a topic and write 5 different kinds of essays on that topic, right? I can write. Let me use my own research. I can write an ABD on Carnival. I could write a classification essay on Carnival. I could write a compare and contrast essay on Carnival, cause and effect essay on Carnival, process analysis on Carnival, and an extended definition on Carnival. So it is possible to take a topic and write 5 different kinds of essays. I don't mind. As a matter of fact, it is beneficial because you really learn to differentiate between the different styles by using the same topic.
Okay.
Right? So if you find a topic you want to hold on to and explore, that's not a problem. I think with the, if I'm remembering correctly, the portfolio requires 2 different essay samples. So again, by using the same topic, you're really training yourself to differentiate between the different styles. So like with the example I used for ABD and classification, I used a university, right? Or even a discussion we were having today, ABD for a flower versus a classification essay for flower, right? Same topic, but we're doing completely different things with it. So that's fine, right?
Thanks, Miss.
Right. Any more questions?
Excuse me.
Yes?
With respect to homework 4 and 5, the thesis statement and the sentence outline, those are the 2 essays we're going to put in our portfolio. It's 2 separate essays.
You can pick anything to develop it. So the idea behind having you do all these theses and outlines is that when it comes time to write the essay, write 2 essays, 2 sample writing, you can pick from these outlines and develop an essay. Your work is halfway done, in other words.
Okay.
So you're not going to have to search for a new topic. You're not going to have to brainstorm and outline and do all that preparatory work. We're doing pre-writing for any 2 essays you want to include in that portfolio.
Okay. Homework 4, is it the same thing? Okay, I know you put a sample of how to do the topic and the outline. Is it the both things we're doing for homework 4 and 5? Is it the same way or?
Right. So the outline, you have a template, that essay outline docs, the Word document.
Right.
That's a generic outline for any type of essay.
Okay. Thank you.
Right?
Miss, that document you just talk about, that downloadable, that is different to the JPEG that was in module 4?
It's the same format. It's just that if you download the Word document, you could type in it.
Okay. Okay.
So it has the formatting built in. You just have to plug in your specific information.
Okay, cool.
Right?
Just excuse, but for homework 4, when I downloaded it, I could not have written anything in it. It was still JPEG.
Well, it's 2 different things. There's a JPEG and there's a Word document. The Word document, I think, is in week 3.
Yes, I saw it. I was able to get it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if you go back to week 3, it's called essay outline dot docx. Right. You can download it. It will open a Word document, and so you can put in your thesis statement. You can put in your topic sentence and your specific evidence, and so on and so on.
I
Right.
wish I had that last week. I would not have gone through all that work.
Yeah, I did put it there so that people wouldn't. And with homework, I know I put it as a link in homework 5. So you will see 2 hyperlinks, and it will actually take you to the hyperlink for the outline would actually take you to the Word document, or it's supposed to take you to the Word document.
Okay.
Right? So yes, the idea is to work smarter, not harder. And I think providing the templates makes it a little bit easier, right? Until you get the hang of doing outlines on your own. Any other questions? And let me also say, apologies, I didn't realize that week 6 didn't publish before. I was very surprised to turn on the computer today and find that it had not been published. I thought I set it to unlock at a certain time. That's my fault. Apologies for that. But it's up and it's there for you to review, to go through at your own pace, take your notes, etc., etc. Right? Now, if there are no more questions or comments or queries or anything, then we all agree that we say class is over. You all have any more questions?
No, man.
No? All right, so I
No,
have
miss. It's about everything for me, miss.
okay. Good. So I pushed homework 6 back to the 14th, which is the Saturday, next week Saturday, right? And homework 5 is due next week. It should have been due this week, but I guess I pushed it back. It don't matter to me much, right? I'm in the middle of homework 2, so I know about half of you have gotten marks back on homework 2. From homework 3, if I'm not mistaken, I'm starting to introduce a rubric as well. So that should help you along in figuring out what you're doing in your essays as well, right? And I will see you all. Which question was that I didn't answer?
Miss?
Uh-huh.
You was talking to us or watching the chat?
Watching the chat, and yeah, trying to figure out it's missing some words in there. And right, so I'll do that outside of class, so it gets a clearer picture, right? So if we have no more class relevant questions or questions for the whole class or for me in front of the whole class, I will see you all next week Tuesday, please God. Wednesday, sorry, next week Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Wow. Today's Wednesday, right?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Woo! 3-4. Having a day today.
Miss.
So I will see you all next week, Wednesday. Of course, available WhatsApp for WhatsApp chats 10 to 10, for phone calls 10 to 4. So I'm always available, and I will see you all next week.
Okay, Miss. Bye, Miss.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have a blessed night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Miss. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
This is Lakshmi. I did send you a message and now came back. I don't know if you took the rest.
That's fine. No, you appeared on screen. That's fine. And of course,
Okay,
classes
thanks.
are recorded, so you'll be able to catch up on anything you missed.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
Let's she want to show you she today, sir.